CTV News with Angela Mackenzie.
Good evening and welcome to this half-hour newscast on CJAD 800 and ctvnewsmontreal.ca. A day after Venezuela's President Nicolas Maduro was forcefully taken by U.S. forces, there is outrage, concern, and questions around who is in control of the oil-rich country. The U.S. said they would run Venezuela, but the current government has already appointed a replacement to their abducted leader. Kamal Karamali reports.
Newly released videos show Venezuelan President Nicolas Maduro in custody on U.S. soil after a dramatic abduction early Saturday, taken to a New York City detention center over alleged drug trafficking and weapons charges, expected to make his appearance in federal court tomorrow. U.S. President Donald Trump saying the U.S. will run Venezuela for now, but the current government meeting the U.S. with defiance. Recognizing Vice President Delcy Rodriguez as Venezuela's acting president, but U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio appearing to soften the stance on their role in the country.
Are you running Venezuela right now?
Here's the bottom line on it is we expect to see changes in Venezuela.
It's been more than a day since a series of deadly strikes resulted in the capture of Maduro. Venezuelan officials say dozens of military personnel and civilians were killed. The damage seen in the aftermath, Venezuelans now uncertain about the future of their country, while those in Canada watch with worry, believing the U.S. has other motives instead of helping Venezuelans achieve democracy.
Do you think they really care about the Venezuelan people?
No. That's a very clear answer. No. That brings a lot of stress and concern personally to me and to my family.
With the United States controlling Venezuela's massive oil reserves, the impact might even be felt here in Canada over time if the U.S. potentially prioritizes Venezuela's oil supply over Canada's.
Could mean a flood of new oil, which could undermine prices, and that certainly could undermine the output.
Tensions also growing on the legality of the U.S. strike. The United Nations Security Council set to meet tomorrow after calling the attack a dangerous precedent. Other nations, including Mexico and Brazil, have backed that same sentiment. Kamal Karamali, CTV News, Toronto.
There's a lot of uncertainty and questions about what the U.S. attack on Venezuela and abduction of its president will mean for the country and its citizens. And with me now is Vincent Rigby, a foreign policy, intelligence, and defense expert. Thanks for joining us.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So, Vincent, obviously we've seen the escalating tension between the U.S. and Venezuela in recent months. Did this military operation and how it unfolded come as a surprise to you at all?
Not particularly, to be perfectly honest with you. We've seen the rhetoric really building up on the U.S. side over the last several weeks, if not 4 or 5 months. We've seen some of the actions that the U.S. has undertaken in the Caribbean. And we've had a national security strategy that came out a couple of weeks ago, which basically said that the U.S. was going to invoke what they called a Trump corollary to the Monroe Doctrine, which effectively said that they were going to get those states in the region in the Western Hemisphere who are not in line, get them in line. So when you pulled it all together, no, I was not completely shocked that this happened in the way it did.
There's been a lot of mixed reaction to all of this as well. On the one hand, we know Maduro is a dictator with a terrible track record for human rights violations. On the other hand, Donald Trump seems to be primarily interested in oil. Is there anything in this for Venezuelan citizens?
Well, I certainly think that decapitating the Venezuelan government and getting rid of Maduro is not a bad thing. I mean, he was a bad man. I think everybody knows that. The U.S. labeled him a narco-terrorist. He was a narco-terrorist. He basically ignored election results and he ruled through his own diktat. So I think for the Venezuelan people, this is a good thing at the end of the day. But I think what is now the question on everybody's mind, what comes next? And so for Venezuelans, I think it's very important. And, Prime Minister Carney said this in his comments over the weekend. It's very important that Venezuelans get a say in the next government. And as part of a peaceful transition to a new government, the Venezuelans are front and center in that process. So that's going to be the key question. What happens next? And we don't really know.
Are there any legal implications that we know of right now for all of this under both international law and U.S. law?
Well, I think that what you are hearing from most legal experts is that this basically flouts most international legal standards or legal norms. It's basically an invasion of a sovereign state. It's a foreign government going into a foreign state and seizing their head of government. This falls into the category of a violation of another country's sovereignty. Again, it may have been the right thing to do in terms of getting rid of a dictator who ruled his country with an iron fist, but it's not the way we'd like to see sovereign states behave. It's certainly not in Canadian interest to see our neighbor go into another country and perform that kind of an act it's got serious legal implications, and it's going to set very, very, very unfortunate precedents for other countries such as China as to what they may want to do in their region down the road.
Well, how worried should Canadians be right now?
Well, I think it's another in a long list of acts by the Trump administration, which should cause concern for Canada. Some of it's been rhetorical, talk of a 51st state, references to the Canadian Prime Minister as governor, those sorts of things. But now you actually see the national security strategy of the United States being carried out, and in a very concrete way. So absolutely. I mean, there are different contexts, obviously. I mean, there's a lot of rhetoric out there right now. This is a warning signal to Canadians. I mean, I don't expect to see U.S. Black Hawk helicopters flying over the streets of Ottawa anytime soon to seize the Prime Minister. He's not a narco-terrorist. But at the same time, it's very interesting that just today, President Trump is once again mentioning Greenland. And so for us, we are going to have to be on our toes. I think we're going to have to continue to pursue a two-track strategy of diversifying our foreign policy, diversifying our trade, diversifying our security, but at the same time looking for ways where we can work with the U.S. And that would include in the Arctic. That would include on issues like ballistic missile defense, on critical minerals, and other things such as that. So we're going to have to walk a tightrope with the United States as we go ahead. But this is definitely a cause for concern, what's happened over the weekend.
All right, Vincent Rigby, thank you so much for breaking all of that down for us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And a reminder, the federal government is warning Canadians to avoid all travel to Venezuela, citing escalating security risks that could lead to borders and airspace closing on short notice. Prime Minister Mark Carney released a statement yesterday on Venezuela, saying he welcomes the opportunity for freedom and democracy. He says, in part, in keeping with our longstanding commitment to upholding the rule of law, sovereignty, and human rights, Canada calls on all parties to respect international law. We stand by the Venezuelan people's sovereign right to decide and build their own future in a peaceful and democratic society. Canada's Foreign Affairs Minister Anita Anand spoke with her Swiss counterpart today about the nightclub fire that killed 40 people New Year's Eve. Anand shared her sympathies with the people of Switzerland, saying Canada grieves alongside you. Meantime, a Sunday mass services were held today in the town. Mourners and parishioners filled the church to honor victims of the fire. Authorities today released the identities of 16 more victims. They are of Swiss, Italian, Romanian, Turkish, and French nationalities. Over the holidays, nearly 30 migrants were caught crossing illegally into Canada, and some of them have been deported back to the U.S. One advocate says changes in American immigration policies are pushing migrants north, and more could be on the way. Sweeta Rassi reports.
It was a busy holiday period at the border near Hemmingford. Officials say 8 migrants crossed illegally into Canada on Friday. An additional 19 were caught on Christmas night near Havelock. Franz André is from the Action Committee for People Without Status.
And people are going to take chances. It's not going to stop.
And André believes more migrants crossed without being caught. He points to changes in U.S. immigration policies, most notably the end of temporary protected status for Haitians on February 3rd. The decision affects more than 350,000 Haitians living in the States.
Donald Trump campaigned last year. One of his promises was to deport 11 million people. And unfortunately, he is executing his promises.
Of the 19 migrants who entered Canada from the U.S. on Christmas, All were of Haitian origin, ranging in age from 1 to 60 years old. According to the Canada Border Services Agency, the migrants requested asylum, but some were sent back to the U.S. after their claims were deemed inadmissible under the Safe Third Country Agreement. The agreement allows Canada to turn away asylum seekers who arrive through official U.S. border crossings, requiring them to make their refugee claim in the first country they arrive in. André says a better system needs to be put in place.
It is very clear that the United States is no longer a safe country for hundreds of thousands of people.
Several of the migrants did suffer injuries such as frostbites, and the RCMP is warning that border crossings are particularly dangerous during the winter. But André says for migrants, turning back is not an option.
They rather die in the States or the Canada in those frigid, cold weather that we're going through than going back to the country where their life is at stake.
If nothing changes, he says crossings like these will continue. Sweet Arasi, CTV News.
Police are investigating a suspicious death in Brossard. The body of a man in his 50s was found at a residence shortly before noon. Police said it was too early to determine whether the death was criminal. The body of a man who was reported missing from the North Shore town of Blainville was discovered in a parking lot in Longueuil Sunday morning. The man's mother reported him missing to Blainville police at 10 p.m. Saturday night. The 21-year-old man had been last seen in Longueuil, leading Longueuil police to assist in the search. His body was found in a public parking lot near the intersection of Roland Terrien and Antoinette Ribadeau at about 3 a.m. Police say his death is suspicious. And a suspicious fire broke out in a two-story home last night in Chamonix-Laval. 30 firefighters were called to the home on Edmond Rostand Street just before 5 this morning. 2 adults and 4 children were forced out onto the street. 3 people suffered smoke inhalation. The fire was under control 2 hours later. The fire department says smoke alarms were present and they have reason to believe the blaze may be criminal. Damage is estimated at about $400,000. A man died in a fire in the Saint-Sauveur neighborhood of Quebec City. The fire broke out in an apartment building on St. Matthias Street late Saturday evening. The body was found as the building was being evacuated. The victim was pronounced dead upon arrival at hospital, and an investigation into the cause of the fire is underway. Well, a torn ACL is one of the most common sports injuries, and recovery can be long. That prompted an orthopedic surgeon at the MUHC to develop an app. It predicts whether the users are at risk of experiencing what can be a devastating injury. Anastasia Dextrine reports.
The ACL is a ligament in the knee, and when torn or sprained, there can be long-term effects.
If you have that injury, you're out of your sports for a rehab that's a year long.
Dr. Paul Martineau is an orthopedic surgeon and director of sports medicine research. In his 18 years at the McGill University Health Center, he's done more than 2,000 ACL surgeries, and he says injuries often appear starting around age 12.
It's become an epidemic where women are injuring themselves 7 times more than men. And the age of the athletes is getting younger and younger. You can see that at all levels of play.
From school sports to the elite professional level, Martineau says prevention is better than cure. Enter Hurt Blocker. The free app aims to flag the risk of ACL injury early and avoid related setbacks. The app is user-friendly. You start by taking a video of yourself doing this, jumping on each leg. The app uses artificial intelligence to analyze knee movement and stability as you land. It then determines if you might be predisposed to ACL injury.
It will process that data and come out with you jump in a way that's risky for your ACL. And if you need help, or if you're a red light, like we call them in the app, there are exercises you can do that decrease your risk of injury by 50%. It's huge.
The recommended exercises are known as neuromuscular training programs. The combination of moves like jogging and jumps helps to improve agility, strength, and balance. And already, Martineau says the app has reached 4,000 downloads in 2 months.
Well, essentially what we were trying to do is put physiotherapists, a doctor in your pocket so that parents, coaches, athletes could just test themselves at home.
Martineau says 12 universities and several professional teams will soon be using the app. and he hopes to see even more jump on board. Anastasia Dextrine, CTV News.
Turning to the weather now. Bundle up, everyone. It's currently sitting at -12 in Montreal, but it feels like -19 with the wind chill. And tomorrow the day starts out at -21, but will warm up to -13 by the afternoon when we should see some scattered flurries. We'll see more snow throughout the week, and things should warm up above zero Thursday through Sunday. Researchers at McGill have been studying the modern dating world and have come to some interesting conclusions. The paper's lead author, Katja Krettel, joins me now. Hi, Katja.
Hi, thank you for having me.
So you looked at 180 single young adults who are actively dating. What were you hoping to learn from them?
So what we wanted to see was what predictors shape single people's well-being in the dating world. There's a lot of pressure for single people to go out there and find someone immediately and think that only if they find someone they can be happy. And we were curious to study for single people who are actively dating but aren't finding that partner, what can predict lower loneliness and greater well-being. And so we looked at relationship clarity, which is the extent to which people understand what type of relationship they're looking for and if it's a clear and coherent idea. And we followed the same group of 180 people across a period of 2 months and found that for people who were actively dating but not finding a partner, people who had greater relationship clarity experienced lower loneliness and greater well-being.
All right, so when you say more clarity about their relationship, what do you mean exactly?
Yeah, so this is the extent to which people can describe what type of relationship they want and how consistent it is from day to day. So when I think of what type of relationship or partner I want, when I describe it, today is at the same thing that I want tomorrow and next week and in a month as I'm continuing to date. So again, the people who had a clearer idea of what they wanted, even if they weren't finding that partner, they felt less lonely and more satisfied with their lives.
So what's next? Do you think these findings will one day help people with their love lives?
I think so. I feel like in 2026, when people are out there actively dating, rather than feeling pressure to find that perfect partner, I think it's important to focus on yourself and focus on your own well-being, because a partner isn't necessarily the answer to life, and loneliness and life satisfaction is oftentimes very subjective, just like relationship clarity and knowing what you want out there. And so I think it's important to just focus on yourself, reflect on what you're looking for. And what we found is that seems to be guiding loneliness and life satisfaction.
That's so interesting. Katja, thank you so much for sharing your findings today.
Thank you.
Time now for In Case You Missed It. It's something that could be right out of a science fiction movie. Researchers are combining science and gaming to make medical breakthroughs. And as Rachel Lau reports and explains, the results are breathtaking.
More interesting for people to view.
You might think this is someone gaming, but it's far from that. She's a researcher in a lab working on a revolutionary way to help people with severe respiratory issues.
Are these anything interesting here? Are these injection points?
Using a VR headset and a handful of 3D printers, MUHC researcher Dr. Darcy Wagner and her team are on a mission to make lung transplants a thing of the past.
And then the syringe sits here.
They're 3D printing patches which fit over a patient's damaged lung tissue. The first step, creating specific inks that are compatible with lung tissue.
We really try to bring tissue specificity to what we are generating with that, and we hope that that's going to lead to better outcomes in terms of what we can generate, that it's closer to what lung or airway tissue is like in the body.
The research is in its infancy, but has already shown promise.
So we actually saw that when we transplanted that we had these cues that vessels from the eventual recipient, that they could actually grow into the grafts that we transplanted.
Wagner, who's also a mechanical engineer, says she was in Munich when the idea for the project came to her.
That we actually made a pretzel. I know it sounds pretty cheesy, but this was sort of like the aha moment that I really believed it was possible when we first found materials and a process that we could actually make something that looked like a complex object that otherwise would be very difficult to generate.
Worldwide, about 7,000 lung transplants are done each year. There's only one hospital in Quebec that can do the surgery. It's a complicated, precise procedure. And according to stats by Transplant Quebec, 14 people are currently on the wait list in this province alone.
Yeah, you ready? Okay.
Wagner, an American who was working in Sweden, was recruited by the MUHC as part of its push to propel innovation.
Recruiting people like Darcy to come and work at the MUHC is really, really important to ensure that our community has access to the latest and greatest and excellence in healthcare.
The research is far from human trial, but if eventually approved, could one day save many lives. Rachel Lau, CTV News.
Transport Canada has announced an update for an earlier recall involving more than 40,000 of Volvo's newer cars and SUVs in Canada. Certain vehicles could potentially experience a software problem causing rear-view camera images to not display when they reverse. The recall affects a number of models from 2021 to 2025. Volvo says it will notify affected owners by mail and send a software update. Well, Canada has a new reason to raise a toast. Marie-Louise Roy-Bilodeau, a Montreal bartender who was named Canadian champion, has been crowned Ultimate Bartender Champion. She beat out 26 top bartenders from North, South, and Central America. Christine Long has more.
So it's like a nice little boozy wake-up.
Bartender Marie-Louise Roy-Bilodeau likes making custom cocktails, like this riff on a Negroni she nicknames a Monday morning.
I just like making something that my guests will enjoy.
She's been bartending 4 years and was encouraged by a boss to compete professionally, so she gave it a shot.
This year I applied to do the Ultimate Bartender Championship. I won the Canadian leg, and that brought me all the way to Colombia for the final for North, South, and Central America, and I won that one.
The only woman in the finals, Roy-Bilodeau, who is 27, says that the all-day competition included mixology, serving, and speed.
Their premise was skills pay the bills. So they created a bunch of challenges to test your day-to-day skills.
Day-to-day skills she's been perfecting at La Cantina Concha.
You had 5 drinks to make and a shot to pour as fast as you could.
Now named the Ultimate Bartender Champion, Roy-Bilodeau earned a retro varsity jacket, a big ring, and bragging rights that her boss is enjoying.
My boss has been like telling people sometimes, like we'll get customers and she'll be like, do you know that she's the best in the world? I'm like, whoa, let's chill.
She jokes her Ultimate Bartender Champion title only includes North, South, and Central America. A real world championship just might be in her mix for 2026. Christine Long, CTV News.
It was a winning afternoon for Montreal. The Victoire played at home, taking on the Minnesota Frost. After a scoreless first period, the Frost got one past Anne-Renée Desbiens. Captain clutch Marie-Philippe Poulin with a heroic dive to tie it up at 1-1. Action with less than 2 minutes left in the third. The Frost took the lead, but Victoire pulled Desbiens and tied the game to send it over to overtime. None other than Philippe Poulin with her second goal of the game to win it 3-2 for the Victoire, ending a 3-game losing streak. And the Habs ended their 7-game road trip against the Dallas Stars. Brendan Gallagher opened the scoring with an assist from Philippe Danault for his 400th point. The Stars and Habs went on to trade a few goals. The home team tied the game 3-3 in the dying seconds of a power play in the third. And just like the Victoire, this game needed overtime. Lane Hudson proved to be the OT hero, wheeling around with a wrister to send the Habs home. on a high note. Well, that's it for us. Thanks for watching and listening. Have a good evening. Take care, everyone.